Black people are monkeys who leave litter on our beaches. Rape of babies is part of Black culture. These are just two of the racist outbursts by white South Africans this year. Are they the ravings of crazy individuals, or is something deeper going on? Could this be a sign that 22 years into democracy, the social and economic power behind white attitudes and white privilege are limiting South Africa's progress towards equality? And if so, how do we take apart these structures of whiteness? With me to discuss this are Wanelisa Kaba, student and activist from UCT, and Fourlist, Corne Mulder, Chief Whip of the Freedom Front Plus, and Rainbowist, Henny van Vieren of the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Funny man, John Flismus is here. So is writer Rebecca Davis. PJ Powers is in the hizzy. We also have commentators Ivo Vegter, Mweletsi Mbeki, and Ibrahim Harvey. And from national government, we have Abraham Serote, Director of Social Cohesion. And in our audience, we have South Africans from all walks of life. Welcome to you all. You at home can send us your comments on racism and inequality. Connect with us on Facebook or on Twitter. But before we start, take a look at this.
Africa. In the struggle, white comrades fought shoulder to shoulder with black leaders. Some whites were injured or lost their lives for freedom. There were also white musicians who used their voices to challenge racism. But times have changed.
Can't we be preoccupied with being successful in business, in the arts? I mean, like Ferial Haffajee says in her book, what if there were no white people?
I think for me, I'm not obsessed with whiteness. I'm obsessed with Black liberation. And I'm obsessed with the rebuilding of Black humanity in this country. So to read my obsession with Black liberation as an obsession with whiteness, I think is incorrect, because we live in a society that is very dishonest about the kind of power, the kind of brutality that white bodies, even without doing anything, hold. And so for PJ Powers to come and sing a very mediocre song and make money over the years about using Zulu culture and using cultural appropriation is exact kinds of power that white people hold in this space. And there's a generation of young people who are sitting, some of them sitting in this audience, who are moving away from the lies of Mandela to say, actually, we want the land at this point in time.
Woo! Good job. PJ, I'll give you the honor of replying. Yeah.
With regards to Jabulani, in 1982, it was probably before you were born, I went into Soweto with a rock song called You're So Good to Me. It didn't have a black note on it. I think some of the older people may remember it. It was You're So Good to Me. It was a rock song that suddenly charted on the Radio Zulu charts. So if you think that I adapted black culture, that is not the case at all. In fact, the black people put me on their wings, okay, and carried me and have ever since. It is something I'm incredibly proud and grateful for. And it hurts me to see somebody that I have fought for my entire life, okay, in my own way, in what I can do. I'm not a politician, I'm not a statistician, I can't do any of those things. What I can do is talk out about whinging whites that we have in this country. And I will always have loved and always will love this country. The book that I've written is dedicated to the people of Soweto.
All right. Corne,
There you have it.
I call you a rainbowist. I think we all used to be rainbowists at some point or other. At the start of our democracy.
Yes.
But a lot's changed. A lot has happened.
The question is
Are
why?
your ideas still relevant?
Absolutely, because the Constitution is still relevant, whether we like it or not. And we all remember what it was like in 1994 and the whole concept of the Rainbow Nation. Why do we have this debate today? What changed? I believe that leaders should set the tone. And President Mandela and other leaders at the time set a certain tone in terms of why and how we should take South Africa forward.
All right. Rebecca, Are all white people racist?
100%. How can you be a white South African and not be racist? And I don't mean that in the way of you necessarily consciously think that black people are inferior. I mean that there is just no way that you could have been born into this society without internalizing racist assumptions. But let's not make that the end of the conversation. It's not racist, it's just a fact. Let's not make that the end of the conversation. Let's say, yes, sure, we are all racist, and what are we going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not make that the final insult.
Monique, do you agree with Rebecca saying 100%?
No,
All
I
white people are
totally
racist.
disagree with what she's saying. I think that whiteness and white privilege has become this buzzword that you hear all the time. But actually, it's a way to silence anyone that is not of color. What she was basically saying is, if you are a white person, you are racist just because you are white, without any evidence. I am not a racist person. I respect all people. I respect black people, white people, colored people. So I feel it's very offensive to say that all white people are racist. It's just not true. And I think that to make whiteness the enemy is easier to fight than to fight the crippling corruption, to fight unemployment, to fight, to fight the wealth gap, because the political leaders that we have cannot fight that stuff. They don't have the skills to fight that, and then they make race the problem.
Ooh,
I feel,
Sarah,
sorry.
you look like you totally disagree
yeah.
here.
I do totally disagree. I think that I'm a little bit torn because I really want to reply to a bit of what Monique has said, but I also really don't want this conversation where we have a potential to disrupt whiteness to be centered around the type of whiteness that is displaying the racism that you say that you aren't. I mean, the comment about people not having skills is inherently racist.
Yeah.
Just to point out one thing. I think we should have the conversation about how to give back the land. I think that's what we should do.
Do you agree with Monique?
Well, I think that what we need to look at is an element of complicity, Mr. Chaba. And I think that fundamentally what we haven't unpacked, we've gone through the TRC process, and what we haven't understood is how white people have benefited firstly from apartheid, and secondly how a particular group of white people in this country have become fabulously rich off the back of apartheid. Now, I think that white complicity, overall, we can look at, and the responsibility to promote social justice in our country, firstly. But when we have two families, there are two families in this country, the Oppenheimers and the Ruperts, names we don't necessarily all know, who have as much wealth as 50% of our people. It's an extraordinary crime. We should call it nothing else. That must be challenged. It's a crime against our humanity, and it's the humanity of 50 million people in this country. That's precisely where we need to focus at and say, how did you make your money during apartheid? How did you build those networks? And how do you retain and entrench your power in the last 20 years? And quite clearly, no one is disrupting that power fundamentally.
All right, Loveland.
I think what Elisa was trying to raise earlier about, PJ's song, yes, struggle hero, or you fought and whatever. I think the problem is that we forget that white people today have the option of tapping out, right? So you can sing Jabulani and you can dance, but then you can also remove yourself from the lived experiences of the culture that you're trying. I'm sorry, I'm speaking. From the culture that you're trying to represent. That doesn't make you a bad person. It's just the truth of the situation. And I think in South Africa, this is really what the conversation needs to be about. We need to talk about, why did apartheid end? Why did colonialism end? It didn't end because people's perspectives and behavior changed. It ended because it was expensive. It ended because white people couldn't travel anymore. It ended because they couldn't go and play sport, because entertainment for white people was over. Therefore, they needed to bring equality. That's not, we need to be honest. We must be honest about this. So for me, when we want to have this conversation, it's easy to say, let's talk about the Rainbow Nation. Of course, you can look forward if your life was never tainted by the experience of apartheid. Of course, you can look forward. It's not the same. And that's the experience of being black, constantly having to reconcile your existence, reconcile your humanity, and demand respect and demand a level of humanity as opposed to what other people just get automatically by being white. That's the reality. You don't have to label it as racism if you don't want to, but it is what it is.
All right. had to think about what whiteness means. Is it about skin color? Mwelezi Mbeki, Ndate, you have said that perhaps we need to target the black elite. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, there was a comment about Oppenheimer and Rupert, but what about Patrice Motsepe? He's a multi-billionaire. So why aren't you mentioning him? What about Cyril Ramaphosa? That's another multi-billionaire in this country. What we're talking here, black liberation. Black liberation, we achieved black liberation in 1994. Okay, you may not
Well,
like
it's not
it.
felt in this
you
room.
May think you may think you got nothing out of it, but we have a class of black people here who are multi.
As we should have.
Yes,
It is their
I'm not
country. We
saying-
should have rich black people.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have them.
Oh, but
I
oh.
say we don't have, blacks are not oppressed by anyone in South Africa.
Wow.
If they are, tell me who's oppressing them.
All
If
right.
they are oppressed,
So if
who
we
is
are
oppressing
oppressed,
them?
if we are oppressed, Wanelisa, who is oppressing us?
I think I hear what you're saying because, you know, you writing your books and the political elites in the ANC are not oppressed because you are doing the oppressing at the moment along with white. You are the gatekeeper of whiteness. You represent the gatekeeper of whiteness. And you sold us out. You sold us out. And to say that you fought for my freedom, you didn't fight for anything because I'm not free at the moment.
I merely said I did what I could. And one other thing, do you think for a second, I as a white person do not agree with both you and you? Have you ever thought that maybe I agree with you?
I don't care. I don't care. At this point in time, white feelings, white opinions don't matter to me because
right,
I need the land. I need the land.
Because
I need us
Give
to
me the
think
land.
about all
I
of
have
us.
the land.
I'd love to come to you, Tiens.
It is unacceptable that inequality is so high in our country. A Gini coefficient of 65% is the second highest in the world, if not the highest in the world. The question I think we should ask is, how can that be changed? Now, there are people here saying, give us the land, then that will change. That may be. I want to say, what is the biggest empowering mechanism in any government's hands, in any nation's hands? No, it's education. What I'm perplexed about is that instead of holding a democratically elected government accountable after 22 years, what do we focus on? On 10 million or 10% people in the country.
The 10% who own the majority of the wealth.
Not all of them.
You own the
So
government.
families.
you know, we can say, city of the land, I've got the Constitution here. Yes, let's work with the Constitution and the National Development Plan and go forward. We shouldn't. We should hold this government and all the political parties accountable.
What about rich black people
Yes. So
who mistreat other black people, like Kulubuse Zuma, who's now been forced by the courts to pay his 5,300 workers? What about him?
in South Africa, it happens to be that the majority of white South Africans, just by virtue of their existence and the access to assets and everything that they have, are very much the huge culprits in this conversation.
No, they're not.
It doesn't mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean that there are black people that are doing things that are wrong. But why is that the immediate equal of it in the conversation? Will we then acknowledge that the entire apartheid machinery was also corrupt and that you know, that it was affirmative action for white people?
Yeah.
All right, Henny, you've actually documented how white fortune was made. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chaba, I think firstly, we need to appreciate our country was at war, right? And our country was at war for decades. And the last 10 or 15 years of that war saw all manner of crimes. In order for the apartheid regime to be able to buy weapons, to buy oil, for large corporations to move their cash offshore, they broke all the rules in the book and made a network of people around the world incredibly wealthy out of that process, and people in our country. So I think for us as a nation, again, to move forward, we need a full understanding. For there to be true justice in our country, there has to be truth. And I think when it comes to economic justice, this is a crucial element that must be the focus of us moving forward.
All right, Abraham, you have a very big job. You're responsible for social cohesion at the Department of Arts and Culture. Can you bring everybody together?
I think it's possible. Government has 14 priorities for this medium-term strategic framework period. And the 14th priority of this current government is social cohesion and nation building, and we have a program of action to achieve that.
Wonderful. We're going to leave it at just one of the 14, given our time limitations. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And we'll be expanding on parts of that when we get to the more conclusive part of this conversation.
Hi everyone, my name is John and I have a new show, that's why I'm here. It's called The Good Racist. Okay, I can't speak for anyone else in this room. I know everyone's very angry and very cross, but all I know is I was born confused. Because I was born in, I was actually born in Zimbabwe, but let's not discuss that. I swam hard and I'm here now. I was raised in a racist environment. Every rule, every nuance, everything told me that black people were dangerous and incompetent and evil. Then my parents went to work every day and left me alone with one. So the problem is that it doesn't even make sense. If the old people didn't even believe what they were teaching us, how are we supposed to process that? So that's the first thing, I think. And then the other thing we must accept is that racism is something which is definite. It's real, it's there, it's an absolute, and it comes out in sneaky ways. African time. What exactly is this concept of African time? It didn't exist before we came here. There was no African time. Things just happened, okay? Nothing didn't get done. Stuff got done. You never saw Shaka Zulu standing on a hill going, ow, where are these Xhosas? I want to have a battle. Stuff just happened, right? Then we came on 3 ships, okay, and made everyone a slave, and now we want you to be on time. Well, what kind of idiot would you be to arrive on time for your own oppression? Thank you very much.
Welcome back to The Big Debate with me, Masachaba Ndlovu. We're talking about whiteness, we're talking about white privilege. So it's good to have a laugh. That was John Flismus, comedian-in-chief. But now on to the serious stuff. So let's talk about Penny Sparrow. She was used to white beaches, having her own space, without any monkeys around, and so-called human beings to share her beach with. Just like people in Parkhurst or in Bishop Court or Kloof are used to white restaurants. In other words, our cities are still segregated. So let's hear from some people who live far from the white suburbs. Simpiwe from Tembelihle, where there have been many service delivery protests. Simpiwe, you are here. So are there any white people that live in Tembelihle?
No, actually in Tembelihle, it's just a big informal settlement where we'll find the poor people who are living in shacks with no electricity, no toilets, even water, because everything that we have is the things that we did on our own, like illegal electricity, connecting water, like buying pipes for ourselves to connect water so that we can have access to water. Actually, when we go out, like Sandton, Rosebank, it's like we are in another country when we compare where we are from, actually. We end up breaking even the law by connecting electricity on our own, and we'll take it from the Indian communities to bring it to informal settlement. People will die each and every day because of the braise that we use when it's winter. Our shacks will burn because we use the candles. We've got signers. Some of people, they don't see in their eyes because of the smoke of the paraffin. So that is how we live.
Do you think it's got something to do with being black and the fact that you're not white?
Yes, it is. Because since I was born, I never saw any informal settlement that I'll be told that whites are staying in this informal settlement. The informal settlements are the thing of blacks. Everywhere where you go, you'll find blacks in those informal settlements.
Wow. So how does that make you feel about white people?
I won't blame the whites for whatsoever that happened, because our parents fought for the freedom, thinking that as blacks we'll have our land back, we'll have priorities like on other things, like at schools we saw the the protest of UJs and stuff, the universities were protesting. We thought such things, we won't see those things anymore. I thought because now it's a black government, we'll be like fading our study, but it's not happening also. So both parties are playing part on this thing of racism or in our future.
So, Mwelesi, it is all about race then.
It's not all about race. You know, we have an ANC government. Hold on.
All right. But you said there's been black liberation.
Yes, that's why I'm saying there has been black liberation. Now I'm explaining why I say there has been black liberation. We have, the ANC controls the government of South Africa. It controls the parliament of South Africa. It controls the police of South Africa. It controls the army of South Africa. So, now my sister here says she wants black liberation. I have been asking her during the interval, she needs to explain to us who is being oppressed by whom and how is she going to liberate
I think Simpiwe has answered that for us.
No, she didn't. She said she's not blaming white people. She didn't say white people put her into the informal settlement. But now you're not dealing with my question.
Sure, no problem. But you asked two questions. Who is being oppressed and who is doing the oppressing? She's oppressed.
By
People
who
who live in Tembelihle are oppressed.
By who?
Maybe we need to answer that question. Kone?
I think we should look at all the facts. I can assure the gentleman and the lady, unfortunately, that I can assure you there are some white informal settlements today in South Africa.
How many?
Where?
Okay. How many white people are living in squatter camps?
If you don't like the facts, it's no use to shout. You have to accept that
How
there's a
many?
reality. Obviously, in terms of percentages, it's a lesser percentage.
Lovelyn?
For me, an ideal South Africa would be a South Africa where we have white maids, white security guards, white people in informal settlements, and then we have more black people in positions, you know, as more black lawyers, more black accountants, more black people living in decent housing, etc.
All right. Ayabonga, who's doing the oppressing?
Look, I think it's a combination of the historically white entrenched and established interests in South Africa, combined with, of course, this new black elite that Utatu Mbeki is talking about. I mean, if you think about BEE, all it is just crumbs trickling off the white table in service and in perpetuation and in continuation of the ritual.
I just want to say something. You know, the most disempowering, destructive and devastating racism is not personal racism. The penny sparrows can spew as much racist filth as they want to. It doesn't kill anyone. You must address the fact that the ANC left intact, virtually untouched. This, when Malema and them speak about white monopoly capital, it's not a myth. It's a devastating reality in the lives of people.
Yeah.
So, you know, the question of the black elite, it's true they're feeding from the crumbs that fall from the table of white monopoly capital, but what you also need to address is that the intra-racial, meaning within the black population, growing class inequalities has now outstripped the interracial inequalities between black and white. This is it. The Anglo-Americans, all of these people dominate this economy. This jobless bloodbath that Bhavi speaks about is a direct consequence of the fact that this economy, where it's a powerful country, we live in the most powerful city in Africa, Johannesburg, and people are living in shacks. That is the most important racism that's linked to to institutional structural issues that I want to hear more about, and I'm not hearing that. I don't want to talk about the penny sparrows. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to take a short break. You are watching The Big Debate.
Dink. Julle kan ons erfenis vat. Wanneer julle het ons nasie gevat. Ek het vir my mense voorheen gewaarsku dat julle is ons land se eie gif, a disease that must be contained into townships. Please understand that snuffing out your lights at night was our way of keeping our hopes alive and yours from resurfacing.
No. Wait. I'm sorry for my blood. That not enough of it was shed, that the blood on me was always yours, not mine, that every step I take leaves footprints in your blood. I'm going to breathe in and dissolve, reconstitute myself in the air, throw my bones for you, bonfire my skin as sacrifice, freeing myself for me, for you, for the stars that shine white in the black sky. No, wait, they shine jewel colors and the sky is blue to purple. No, wait, the stars are fading. The sky flashes blood red, settles into velvet. The moon is yellow-orange. Colors roam only in browns, and I can finally breathe. Because I am the small particles of dark I have always been, and I have nothing to do with explosions. No. Wait.
You forget to mention that whiteness was a prerequisite, so I guess the helix of your DNA is the corporate ladder that you climb to be above us. Even our flag segregates us, betrays us, by trading in the fields and gold that you bought with our blood on our land.
Welcome back to the big debate on race, inequality, and whiteness. I'm Masachaba Ndlovu, and you've just been listening to Tshepo Molefe and Sarah Gottsell, who is a young poet. They both are. Sarah happens to be the daughter of Bobby Gottsell, the former CEO of Anglo Gold Ashanti. Thank you both so much for making the time to be here. That was one heck of a poem. And the part that particularly stood out for me was when you said you're sorry that not enough of your blood was shared.
The poem is supposed to be an apology that shows that it's never big enough, that it's never enough, that's the no wait. And you've also referenced my father. I'm living in a legacy that I'm trying to undo.
What do you mean when you say that you are living a legacy that you're trying to undo?
I'm trying to find ways to live that will actively speak to the project of disrupting whiteness, of disrupting myself, but at the same time, not wanting to make it about me. The point about education, land speaks to wealth, which speaks to education, you know, so how everything is tied, and how we can address, how I can address all that aspects of that in my personal and whatever other capacities that I have.
So do you think capitalist, wealthy white families like the Ruperts should give away their land, give away their money?
Yes.
All right. All right, so Monique, I'd like to bring you here into the conversation. We've heard a poem that absolutely captures white guilt. Do you feel guilty?
I feel that I don't have to apologize because I personally did not take part in apartheid. And in my heart,
So
I
can
feel
we say
sorry.
no?
Yeah, I
You
feel
don't feel
sorry for
guilty?
each and every person that was disadvantaged by apartheid. But you can't say that young people today still have to apologize. We also want to...
I don't think anyone's just asking for an apology. I think that happened with the TRC. So, Wanelisa.
You know, Ms. Chaba, I'm sitting as a black, poor, dispossessed woman in this country and having to listen to Monique saying she's not guilty. But I'm living under white supremacy right now. And we skip away of the violence of white supremacy because we talk about the township, we talk about poverty as things that are it's just irrelevant. That lady's story is so powerful because it's the story of my mother, it's my story, it's the story of every black person in this room who has been dispossessed, who lives under violence every day in this country. So I'm sorry, Sarah, I don't want you to live in ways that you want to give back the land, because I want to take back the land, because for me, psychologically, it's very important that I take back the land. You don't give it back to me because it was taken back forcefully under colonialism. So I want to decolonize this country. And maybe if it means that an army of black people in this country take arms in order to do that, then maybe it needs to happen. But I'm tired of these debates. I'm tired of these debates.
Is that progressive or regressive? Do we need to have war for that to happen? I don't think so. What do you think?
When you've taken the land back, make sure you give it to the rightful owners in terms of the truth. Give it to the Khoi and the San people there.
Yes!
They are the rightful owners. If you want to take back the land, give it to the rightful owners. But you see, the problem is this.
So are you saying that black people are also not the rightful owners of this land?
If the black people are the rightful owners, where did they get the land?
Is that what you're saying?
No. History is much more complicated than that. Much more complicated. And we can go and have a look at that. But it's a myth. It's a myth to just claim that everything belonged to this, nothing belonged to that. It's a myth. If people start talking about war, we are in a very, very dangerous situation. It's very easy to incite violence. You don't know what you're talking about now. I would suggest that we all move away from that.
Wait a second. Hold on a second.
And luckily I know that the majority of people in this country from different communities are not interested in violence. They are not interested in conflict and war. Those are side elements that should not be allowed to destroy the fabric of social cohesion in this country.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Social cohesion.
If you want my land, you can come and take it right now. I've never owned any land anywhere, ever. I'd like to make a proposal, though. Right? In all these debates, a lot of people forget, right, that our government actually owns almost half of all the land in South Africa.
That's not true. Don't lie. You're lying. You're lying.
At national and
You're
provincial
literally
level, it's 24%, and at municipal level, we don't really know, but
You're
we estimate about
literally
25%.
All right, let's let him finish.
Also, the government owns a lot of national assets in terms of state-owned enterprises, right? And a lot. It's not only the big guys, right? Why would the government need to own a diamond mine, right? Now, the government could, in very short order, right, make a huge dent in economic inequality. I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems, right, but make a huge difference, right, by giving that back to the people. Right? It used to belong to the apartheid government, now it belongs to the ANC government. Right? Go